Hi, I'm Ariana, and I'm with Fresh Pair of Eyes.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. A lot of time with period pieces is pretty heavy-handed with the cultural references, but this set in the 90s is very subtle. Why did you go about it in that way?
That is definitely something we talked about early on, which is like, how much do you want the clothes, the music, everything to be on the nose? Um, for us, it was really important, more so than, screaming 90s, was to have the show feel very, very grounded. And because there are elements that are science fiction and that are more surreal, we wanted everything else to feel real. And in order to do that, I mean, when you were living the 90s, it's not all needle drops and 90s clothes as we know it now. It's much more subtle. And so because of that, we had the production designer, costume designer, everybody really worked towards making it feel as nuanced as possible.
So Kirby is an unreliable narrator because her reality is always constantly
Mhm.
shifting. Like, what elements that did you want to decide that was going to be changing and true and false? How did you decide to go about that?
um I very early on in the writing process of the pilot was the changing reality. Once I had that, I was like, oh, that's the show for me. That's the metaphor I'm interested in talking about. And I think that's the mystery I want to be solving for the season. Um, as she starts to understand more about what's happening to her over the season and why it's happening, we also can start to get our feet more on the ground, because just like with her, it's like once you have more information, okay, now you can trust more what you're seeing, you can understand more what you're seeing. So I think it's nice in that you're with Kirby emotionally at every point in the whole show.
The book is set in Chicago, and the show is literally shot in Chicago as well. Why was it important for it to be shot in Chicago compared to a soundstage?
Oh, I am so grateful that we were actually able to shoot Chicago for Chicago, because it became such an important character in the show. I haven't seen as many shows set in Chicago. The city itself is really incredible. It has so much history to it. The fact that the Chicago Sun-Times is the main setting and that we're actually being able to make the show in the place, in the communities that newspaper was covering in the 90s. I think I was just very blessed to be able to do that. And just in terms of the practical, Chicago has a very established, really, really talented local production crews, and their theater is amazing. So a lot of the actors you're seeing in the show are local Chicago actors, which I think helps make the show feel really authentic to the place.
All the directors were female, and I'm assuming a lot of the writers were female as well, if not all. Why was it important to have that for this story or in general?
It's interesting, it actually wasn't intentional. We didn't really, there wasn't a mandate when we started finding collaborators. Oh, it has to be an all female team. When we started meeting with just every single department, from directors to production designer to costume designer, it's just who are the collaborators who really understand the material, who really connect with it, who are really passionate, and are really willing to make this a labor of love. Um, and in this case, it just happened to be women. But for every, like Michelle McLaren, she directed the first two episodes. She directed Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones. She is incredible director. That's why she's directed the first two episodes. It just felt like she's the one who's going to be able to create that tension week to week. She's the perfect person for this project.